Mamas. All right, are we live? Instagram? Welcome, Instagram. Welcome. Okay, and welcome, Facebook. Yes. Nice to see you. Okay, so I could not believe the weather was perfect for today. Dare I take this iPad off? Just take a look at the weather outside. Could it get more blah? Yeah, actually it could. We've had a lot of sun this last winter, but I thought this might be the perfect day to do a discussion on Slump Month. Do you know, to my surprise, not everybody knows about Slump Month. It might be me that's initiating that word, but I don't think so. I think I heard it a long time ago. Probably started writing about it a few years ago. The strategies that we use to deal with that time of year, that is post-holidays, there's, Christmas is gone. Guess we have Valentine's yet to look forward to, but like the whole holiday season, there's Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all of that. And then we had our homeschool planning somewhere. We do it probably the end of August, and June, July, August we're planning. We put our things into practice by September and we enjoy that for limited time. And then by January, when all of the holidays are done and all the energy kind of tones down a bit and the weather's kind of blah, and we've had 9 months already inside, Slump Month can be a challenge. It often influences our mood, our energy, our productivity, our overall sense of well-being. And here we are talking about strategies, how to engage that. First, I want to hear who of you feels a seasonal affective challenge. You don't have to have the full-on SAD disorder. Nobody's diagnosed you necessarily. Maybe you are diagnosed with SAD, but have you had an experience at this time of year that you do indeed notice that your mood or your energy or your productivity really does start to decline? Yes, me too. That has been something that traditionally I've been challenged by. I grew up somewhere where, though it was very cold and there was a lot of snow, it was always bright and blue, or at least a lot of the time it was bright and blue. And where I live in the mountains in British Columbia, I definitely get a lot of days that are overcast and heavy and dark and unpleasant. Somewhere in January, February is when I start to really notice that, because there's not these big events to look forward to. So I feel like that's usually when I start to notice that. Having said that, I don't have the cold that I had when I lived in Alberta. -5 is a really cold day here. And believe it or not, my kids in the last few weeks, -8 I think we had, thought that was really cold. And I have stories from when I was a little girl. When we were in school and we had to go for recess, it didn't matter what the temperature was. If it was -30, -40, the buses might have been shut down, so we didn't get to school. But if it was -20, a little bit hovering around there, -15, -25, we still went to recess. And I remember my teacher saying to me, it's not really that cold unless your nostrils are frozen together. Yeah, that cold. And nonetheless, that is not my experience. We still have flip-flops that I found in the bottom of the car yesterday, because kids still run out and open up the chickens and walk the dog in flip-flops in snow in -5, because that's what you do when you're that age, I guess. And it's that kind of weather. It's nice, but the weather does influence us. I don't think it's just the weather, though. I think there's an energy about just kind of feeling bored and done with the routine. Thank you. Yes, very hot. So this is something that we often enjoy for Homeschool Hygge, those comfort measures for homeschool parents. Really, we do this all year long, don't we? Lots of tea. Drinking tea from my garden, mint tea today. And of course, if you saw the outdoors, there is no garden there yet. It is full snow. And one of the things that I love to do in January and February that I don't do at any other time of the year, not a lot of time, is actually garden planting. So this is what I was doing last weekend. I have all sorts of seeds from last year I buy them from West Coast Seeds because I am on the West Coast. And then I go through all of my seeds to make sure that I've got everything. And if I don't, then I do an order, which I just did. Or during the boring times where I have nothing else to do, I pull out seed pods that I've been drying in the greenhouse. That's very cold right now. And I pull all the seeds out so I can get ready for my garden. I did some garden planning, like actually sketching it out and doing ordering. My son was looking at the chicken catalog last week. Yes, we're going to order at least 10 more chickens, laying hens this year. If I can find a separate building for meat hens, then I might raise a few more meat hens this year, but I'm having a hard time actually raising a meat hen and then roasting a meat hen. I can do it, but literally the rest of my family has issues. So that's a show and tell about how I'm managing January, February. It's pretty typical for me to do this all the time. But I was last week going to show you a piece of show and tell that comes out of my son's interests. And when he heard that I had planned on doing this, he's an interesting character because he's not extroverted. He's a huge reader, but he also has his own Instagram channel on magic tricks, and he's very good at performing, and he's very good at mechanical type things like, Legos, but also this home science kit that we picked up, which he said, I call it a windmill because it was originally intended as a windmill, except he turned it into a fan with his Lego stuff and some batteries and these things. This is not my forte, but I just thought this was cool. This is the kind of stuff my guy does. I think I just wrecked it. Good. Classic. Not my thing. Not my thing at all. And don't tell my daughter. I hope you're not here. You were just... If, Madeline, you're here, you have to leave. You just brought me tea. Sometimes I find my kids jump on and they listen to my live or they wave. I think they feel bad for me that there's not a ton of people at first. And I'm like, it's fine. People watch it later. They're not always watching it right now. And so anyways, Madeline, don't be here right now. So show and tell. Her birthday is just around the corner. She's turning 18. And that to me is a big birthday. And 18 years old. So then we decided, she just got news today that her portfolio was accepted to the college that she provided it to. And so exciting, she already got into that ballet school, and now she's been, I don't want to say accepted into the college, but she's been encouraged to now apply different process as a homeschooler that doesn't do things traditionally. And so we decided, my husband and I, to outfit the room that she's been using this last year in all dance stuff. So dance flooring that she can roll up and bring to Toronto next year if she's going, and a dance bar and mirror and get our new leotard and all that stuff. So super fun. And so that's my show and tell. Took a day off last week. It was probably the first time, I'll turn my voice up again, probably the first time that I took a day off this entire pandemic. Like I just didn't feel the same kind of feelings that everybody talked about with the pandemic. I don't have an issue being at home. In fact, I like it, and I like not having to do all the extracurricular driving this year. And I've been fine, except there was a certain point where I'm like, I am done with this. I've had enough of this. I like ordering my groceries online. That is a total benefit to this year. Why did I ever grocery shop ever? And, I don't want as much extracurricular driving. Now that my daughter has her driver's license, I don't have to. Yeah, that is a whole different kind of freedom as a parent. Also kind of scary. But, that is really exciting. But there is something about, okay, now how do we manage the social angle? I want to provide what I need for my children, but then at the same time, I know that I'm not supposed to be spending time with other people, but they say transmission isn't as bad outside, that you can't do it inside, except all the schools are open and kids are milling about together and they are not doing always the things they're asked to do. I see them on the streets and it doesn't look like there's a pandemic based on, on a lot of teenagers' behaviors. And so then I'm like, well, what do I do about my homeschooled kids that don't have a school? And, I just felt like, okay, I'm done with this. And so I think I finally hit that pandemic wall. I took a day off. First day I've ever taken a day off to not write or not record or not create a course or, you fill in the blank. I've got so many things going on. And so I guess that's what you have to do. Every once in a while, you just have to stop and then decide, maybe do I want to keep doing all these things? Maybe I don't. And there is something to be said about the same strategy for Slump Month, is that maybe this is the time, if you're kind of feeling like you're done with all of the weather and with this whole pandemic thing, then maybe it's time to make a radical shift. Stop everything, just for a day. Maybe just change it up for a week. But I'll get into the strategies in a little bit. One of the strategies I have to say has also been a benefit this year is that starting a podcast, I think I released my 34th episode this morning. A very interesting chat with two mama psychologists that are both new moms and are obviously homeschoolers. One has a 3 and a 1-year-old and one has a just turned 1-year-old. And really interesting to talk with them about postpartum depression and postpartum challenges and dealing with toddler emotions and that whole realm. And I thought this is something that I definitely need to go towards or discuss again, because even though I'm not in that phase, I know that some of you are. And it's a very demanding phase, although I have yet to find the phase that's not demanding in some form. But it has a certain level of demand that certainly is overwhelming at first because it's all new. So they also talk about the myths of motherhood and also the transition into motherhood and accepting what motherhood is really all about and, getting comfortable with the transition into motherhood. So that was a really interesting chat to have with somebody about, bringing back all the memories of having young kids and remembering what it was like when I was in my early homeschooling with my kids, which were these ones. And the youngest, I think he was a little younger than here, but the youngest at the time was definitely sitting on my lap. And then I had my toddler, my young preschooler, with her basket and trying to keep her occupied and then trying to traditionally or classically homeschool my two oldest. So I'm not against classical homeschooling, but the way I did it, I don't recommend. Right out of Susan Wise Bauer's book. I can pull it out, but anyways, if you know her book, she's definitely classical homeschooling, and I did everything to a T. It was tiring. So I also got to have an extra interview last week. Have you heard of Vicki Tillman? She is Homeschool High School podcast. And she is a psychologist that is in Delaware, and she has full-grown adult kids. She has a 40-year-old child. I had such an interesting conversation with her. Some of these podcast episodes feel like I get free therapy. I get to ask all the questions I want. It's so cool. And frankly, this gal, she is just replete with wisdom. And somebody that I listened to as a podcaster in my early homeschool years, and she was one of the few people that really fortified my spirit, made me realize I can do this homeschool thing. In fact, she focuses on high school, and I'm like, I can do this homeschool high school thing. So it was really a pleasure to chat with her, and I'll release that episode next Wednesday. And then today I got to chat with Gabe Cox, and she is the creator of Red Hot Mindset. Red Hot Tamales, that's what I think of when I listen to her or when I see her name, creator of Red Hot Mindset. And I learned that she has 3 boys. I learned that she has run for the Boston Marathon twice. So now I know 3 people that have done a marathon, so that was like good on me, right? No, anyway. So she has an entire book that is devoted to deciding what things are important to you and how can you accomplish those big goals, the impact that it can have on your kids and the sense of joy that it brings to you. as a homeschool mom, and she's been doing stuff right from the get-go. As a homeschool mom, she's been full-time working, and she's been fitting in all of her life goals. So I'm excited to share that with you in 2 weeks. I've been reading Tangle of Knots with, I think it's Lisa Graff, with my son in the last couple weeks, and I just love how the plot is being built. I decided I'd write a post on how to do a loose unit study or unit study approach, unschooling approach, on books, on specific books. And I know it's been done before, but if you know me, you know that I am a fly by the seat of the pants kind of person, but I do a lot of content wherever I'm doing something. I have a lot of focus, or a lot of ideas with all of that. And because I am writing the second book, the first book's not even launched, it should be in the next few weeks, but the second book is about self-directed learning. But the focus of that book is an encouragement to the homeschool mom that you can transition from a public school mindset into a homeschool mindset so that you can facilitate more of a self-directed education, learning to let go of your schooled notions and accepting your child, your individual child that's right in front of you, and trying to encourage an education that fits into their actual world and who they're meant to be and what they're meant to do. You know, I was going to share with you the differences between homeschooling in 2020 and the homeschooling experience in 2021. And I don't know if anybody caught that, but I'm still going to write that post because there is a whole different experience for anybody that's new to homeschooling. What was homeschooling in 2019 versus what homeschooling experiences were in 2021. Or what they are now, it's just very different. So I'm going to bring that up at some point. But I told you that I was going to talk about Slump Month and Slump Month strategies. So let's get started. And if you're here and you're watching, I'd love it if you tell me where you're from and who you're homeschooling. What kids' ages you're homeschooling, how long you've been homeschooling. Give me a sense of who I'm speaking to and if this applies to you. Since I don't have a paper in front of my monitor this time, I am able to see if you are here. Yes, hi. Okay, yeah. Great, okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to beat Slump Month in your homeschool. Despite the New Year plans, because we had our ideas of what this part of our homeschool year was going to be like, we kind of don't have the same energy as we did in September. Or at least I should say it's pretty typical not to have the same energy and enthusiasm that we had a few months ago to begin homeschooling again. And this year, even more, for obvious reasons. But I think the requirement is that if you are doing something and it is not working for you, then the goal is to change it up. I think that our goal should be happiness, even though I'm fully aware that we can't always be happy. But when we are feeling kind of tortured or not really feeling like this is the sweet spot, that's our sign that we should keep moving in a different direction, or we should start taking hints to do things differently. I know that we can't always get to that sweet spot. There's no such thing as full balance in anything that we're doing. There's no way that we're going to make this comfortable and beautiful all the time. It's not always going to be a charmed life, but we are gravitationally pulled towards that. And I think when we pull, or we allow that pull to draw us towards something that is more comfortable, we can learn to grow, and we can learn to adjust and learn to accept what our actual experiences are. And that is an impetus for us to keep moving in the direction that might work. So that is the goal. How do we get there? I'm going to throw out a few strategies that maybe you've considered before. These are reminders, or maybe they're just completely off the wall ideas. These are the times to enact those off the wall ideas. because we are not a family that has every year gone to Jamaica and enjoyed the beach at this time of year. I wish we have once. And you can see my toes with my husband's toes there. Yep, we enjoyed that. And it would be ideal if we could do that every year, but it's not a reality every year. So, how to beat the slump month? Do something less expensive. Whatever you're doing right now, however you're organizing your homeschool, you can take a week off. You really can. This notion, I was talking with Gabe this morning, excuse me. Excuse me. I was talking to Gabe Cox this morning about, are you behind in something? People are often worried, or homeschool families are often worried that their kids are behind in something. And rightly so, because there's a lot of peer pressure around us to do things the way that everybody else is doing. But I would suggest to you, behind what? If your goal is to follow the learning outcomes of your state or province, then fine, then maybe you are behind. But if your goal is to provide an education that really means something to your child so that they can grow up to be who they were meant to be, to find their own community to build support in and to grow in and to provide things for, and to find a way to monetize their purpose or their interest so that they can provide for themselves and their families, if that's the goal, it doesn't have to be a traditional approach to getting that goal. An education can be specific to that child. And if that be the case, then I ask, behind what? What are they behind in? And so, could you give up an activity entirely for a week? In my experience, it is valuable. You either realize after that week or after whatever period of time you decided to come back to it with a different verve, with a different energy, or you say, yes, so that's good. I don't need to keep doing that textbook or curriculum or approach or philosophy. I can just let it go because it's not that valuable. Sometimes we just need to let things go. Or you could just change up the schedule for a certain short period of time. Maybe you could just add something in on Thursday afternoons. Maybe you could literally change around your typical routine in a day. Do the thing you normally do at 3, do it in the morning, that kind of thing. You could shift it up like that. This is something that your kids would really like, is to actually delete something for a week. So they get to decide what subject or what activity they don't have to do this week. They don't have to do that thing this week at all, and I guarantee you they'll be happy. You could actually take all the different things that you do, put them in a hat, and then have one of the kids, pull out a little slip of paper and figure out that that's the thing that they're not going to do this week. You could focus on nature. I suppose we homeschoolers are always saying that, aren't we? Especially with the Charlotte Mason encouragement that we focus on nature, we go outside and we really notice what's going on. But oftentimes, though right now our family is personally cross-country skiing, and I haven't done it yet, haven't needed to do it yet, but I've got my snowshoes in the back, and walking the dog and hiking and all those sledding outdoor things that we can do. We're not necessarily doing a nature study. We're not necessarily really noticing what's going on around us. So we can make our focus of nature study outside now. It's useful to see the transitions from season to season, and to see, what birds are out there, or, what berries do we see? Maybe we can learn what those berries are. Maybe we can decide which ones are actually forageable, or watch which the birds are actually eating, which is not necessarily the ones that are forageable for us. But, we could look underneath rocks and see, is there anything still hanging out there? There's many different things that we can notice in the middle of winter and focus on nature right now, which is not always something that we usually do in January. And also being outside just provides a lot of mental clarity. It always does for me. It is my instinct for both when I'm feeling heated and when my kids are heated, that I'm like, okay, outside. Go figure out what's going on and, see where you're at. And I suggest outside for the really obvious reason, or at least for me it's obvious, that it just really helps to calm and cool you. The cold weather is probably a great blast to kind of brace you and get you back into, I don't know, a quieter place. So I find outside is just useful for my mental space too. I want to say, I wrote this discussion a few years ago, and I said to focus on field trips, and I would like that to be the case right now. It's not my option where I'm living right now to really do much. They don't call it officially a lockdown, though some people are calling it that. But you know, going into big public places, unless you're in a school, is not something that is encouraged or allowed, because a lot of things are shut down. So we can't do all sorts of, you know, field trips into different places. But what we have been benefited by this last year is a lot of options online. There are museums and galleries and science centers and all sorts of things available to us right now that we did not have access to last year, that we would have had to travel to all these different places to be able to see what they have available to us online. So just explore it. Build it into your routine and say maybe Friday mornings are the time of day or time of week that we're going to do something different. We're going to London to visit the British Museum. Or, you know, go to Ottawa and you can check out, we've got lots of different, you know, history museums and art museums or art galleries there. Or your local one. That's something that we have done, that we have been able to carry on, and we do once a year anyways. So focus on field trips. If you can get away, even when, you know, in a regular year, we would go to a small town that was near to us, which is not encouraged right now, so I'm not encouraging that. But we go to a town near us and we would go explore the library or go to a cafe or see what their museum is like. And it's not profoundly different, but it is very interesting to see the variations and things. In fact, the town that is, we live in between two towns, about 20 minutes away, and we are really out of town. If you know me, you know that we are really, really out of town. And we're in between these two small towns that have a really different vibe about them, very different experience. So what it's like to go into a museum or a church or a, you know, any type of shopping facility, it's very different. So even just not a town too far away, but if that's possible or available to you, it's helpful to get in the car and go somewhere. Playing games. I suppose playing games is a rite of passage also, just like tea, right? It's a rite of passage as a homeschool family to do a bunch of games. Confession, I'm not a games person. In fact, I can only remember kind of sort of liking Scrabble when I was young. And what is that game? I know, I can't think of the name. It'll come to me. Anyways, there's one other game that I liked, but I was not a games person. But as a homeschool mom, I've learned to play games. Like I was playing Settlers of Catan last week. I had no idea what was going on for about the third or fourth round. I know I played it before, but I'm like, okay, this is like loaded with clever stuff that I'm just like, this is too many directions. And I'm, of course, the only one in the family that's like that. Everybody else likes playing games, except maybe one of my girls. But everybody else likes playing games. So we like have all the games. But maybe this is the time of year where you actually pull out all the games. Or did you do that last March? But if this is the time of year to encourage you to pile them up in the great room or the family room or wherever you hang out, pile them up and play them one by one until you're done, and then put them back into the cupboard one by one when you're done. Some of those games you need a time limit on. Monopoly, I do not have 4 hours to play Monopoly. Yes, I do. Some days I could if I wanted to, and no. Or chess. I'm just really bad at chess, to the point where I'm not even asked anymore, actually. And of course, I remember hearing for a long time that homeschool parents would talk about their kids making games, and I'm like, wow, they're so smart. But if you have enough time, enough solitude, and you have a clever child or 4, it turns out they play games. Like, frankly, you know, my son made a game 2 weeks ago. I don't remember what he called it, but he was incorporating like chess and Among Us, and there's 2 or 3 other games, and it was all in one board game, and he created like an entire board of it with all different directions or instructions, and I was like, okay, too much, this is overwhelming. But I just nodded my head and I kept rolling the dice and did what he said. And the others said that was actually very complicated, very clever game. So maybe you just pull out all the games, get the kids to make their own game. Play Jeopardy. No, that's a game I'll play. Fun Fridays. So for many years, we would play a game that I made myself based on a Jeopardy game, if you're familiar with that game show. And I would print just a basic Jeopardy thing from the internet that would be like, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and I would fill in the blanks to different categories of trivia that I already knew that the kids had been exposed to sometime in their homeschool. And I think I have the cards here. Nope, but I really just put trivia that they learned on a recipe card, 5 different questions. I have so many cards. I think I've got them across the room here, but I've got like a big pack of cards that I'd either have them write some of the things that they were learning that week, or for years we did Canadian history bits or geography, or like really in any historical period. We went all over the map with Canada history and history of Russia and the United States and places all over the world, and chemistry and physics, and you name the topic, we put it into some recipe card. 5 knowledge bits that I thought it would be kind of fun for them to memorize, or things that they thought were valuable. And then we would play Jeopardy just like the good old-fashioned way. Can I have Russian history for 100, please? And then they would fight. That's probably Freudian and true. But there were times where they would just hit their buzzer, and I would play Jeopardy music on Spotify. And then as soon as somebody hit the table, literally in this room, hit the table, then we would stop and they would answer it and see if they got it, and then they would get a candy for that correct answer. And it was such a reinforcement to so many different trivia bits, but also is kind of like pseudo quizzing. So in some ways it helped me understand where their focus was. And it was remarkable. It was remarkable to see the differences between the kids, that my youngest was very focused on ancient history. My oldest at the time, my 3rd daughter, had said, he doesn't know all that stuff. Did he memorize that for this time? And I'm like, no, he's like reading this all the time. He loves this stuff. And whereas she's doing the physics questions, and my other daughter is doing logic or math or something, but they focus in different directions. So it's actually a really useful tool to learn a little bit more about your child and how they engage things. And it was fun, and we always focused on the fun Friday aspect, pulling out all the educational games like Professor Noggins. This is a really good series that is also really a trivia game of what I was just describing. Bananagrams, that's one of the favorites that we have. Oh, we've got a lot of games, but there's only a certain ones that everyone likes that we do all the time. So Fun Fridays can be a way of breaking up your slump month. Exercise. I think I feel actually more compelled to exercise now, just because it's dark and it's gray and I don't have the option to be outside as often, and the sky gets dark quicker than it normally does. And so that I'm just even 15-20 minutes of hard sweat-inducing exercise that gets your heart going and your respiration's higher. It feels like it burns off tension. And that's the reason that you want to be exercising. If you're not sold on exercising, if you feel like, please don't tell me to do the latest, what's the latest? I don't even know. Clearly I'm not into that sort of thing. I love cross-country skiing right now. That's my favorite. But get your heart rate up so you can burn off tension. Because we're homeschool moms and we've got a couple reasons to experience tension throughout the day. And the kids too. The kids need to as well. You could call it gym class. I'm not that homeschool mom that says let's go do phys ed or let's do PE, but whatever you call it, exercise. Burn off some tension, all of you. I like the dance party the best. I actually went into my daughter's dance room downstairs. It was just like an empty room that didn't have any value whatsoever before the pandemic. And then since the pandemic, she's been doing all her dance classes, her online dance classes downstairs. And so this last week, my husband and I went down there and we danced. And I turned up the music more than I normally do, like really high, and put on music that I don't normally dance to. And we just danced. And it was so much fun. Helen mentioned today, hi Helen. Helen mentioned today to write out your hopes from your journal or do a dream board. That's such a good idea. I love writing, just like she knows I love writing and she loves writing. She's such a great letter writer. She keeps that fun. There's a strategy actually right there, is to create a homeschool mom literary club. No, that's not right. Like a letter writing club. I know that's so old school, isn't it? I am so old school, but I love that. And she's an amazing person to connect to. So maybe Helen, you want to do that? You want to start that? She suggested writing your hopes and your dreams in a journal or doing a dream board or a vision board. Maybe we can't do everything we want to do right now, but we will. Yes, we will. Yes, it's taking longer than we thought, but we will. And so then start building more hopes and dreams and ideas. If you can't do it, you can dream it. And another friend, Miriam, reminded me of something that I have said many times as well, is to consider that maybe this season is intended for us to hibernate. That's kind of the point, right? All of the plants have gone into hibernation, or at least in my part of the world. Maybe you're in a part of California where nothing is seasonal and you have the same season all the time. That's not my experience. So, the plants are hibernating, and, my garden is covered in about a foot of snow right now. And though there's nothing green that I can see, come whenever the snow melts, I'll start seeing little green things coming up, because there are seeds in there and they will grow. It's just a matter of time. And I don't really want to perpetuate the myth that bears truly hibernate, because I think I'd read that they don't actually hibernate the way that I understood that they did as a child. And for the record, I saw a bear run across our driveway this morning that my dog was running after. There was a bear that was not hibernating. My son says it must have been a black bear, not a grizzly bear, thank goodness. But it was a little bear, and this is January, at the end of January. So I don't know if they totally hibernate, right? But we can treat this season like we are indeed hibernating. So, because the season is going to shift. Spring will come again, summer will come again, we'll find water sources to go play at, we'll be able to hang out at the beach or just lay around outside with the kids with a sprinkler or a little mini pool or whatever you like to do. It will happen again. We'll be able to do those things again. So maybe the point in hibernating, the point of being a bear in hibernation, is to accept that indeed it is what it is. It is what it is. So what are we going to do with it? But there are birds. If you are a bird watcher, this is the season to do it. Partly because there's less to watch, and certainly it's easier to identify them when you're outside. But they're different kind of birds that stay here over winter, and there's also ones that will hang around our house a little bit more than they normally do. So that might be something to do, is to do a bird watching season. Cornell University has a free, it's really participating in their research trial every year to determine what kinds of birds are in your home or in your area, and spend 2 hours, maybe 1 hour a day watching the bird feeder to see what kind of birds, tracking that. It was kind of fun when we did it. I liked doing it, learning about our area. I'm going to give a shout out to the homeschool genius. I think her name is Nike, and she had mentioned in her Instagram story today to just show up. And sometimes just showing up as a homeschool mom for her means to put on makeup and to get dressed, get out of the yoga pants, and feel fresh and ready to seize that day. Well, I'm not really that mom. I try to be, but mostly my kids know that I'm either going somewhere or I'm about to go to recording, because that's about the only time that I'm truly out of the yoga pants and dressing up. But I do know what she means though, because it does make you feel like you're not in the slump month when you're getting dressed up as though you're tackling your day instead of just hanging out on the couch again. Actually, shouldn't have said that. Who's hanging out on the couch as a homeschool parent? Okay. So how about try deleting a subject for a while? I think I said that, didn't I? Okay. Let them choose what they want to do, the kids, and in what order they want to do it, even if just for a week. This actually is very useful for you. It's useful information to learn about your kids and learn what they're naturally gravitating toward and learn how they're learning. It is something that I have used for a long time. I'm not a true unschooler, I've learned, because I'm not entirely like, I don't know, everybody has different interpretation, but I have screen limits, and they aren't during the day unless there's a reason and there's something that they're researching, or there's some agreed upon documentary, or they need to do something on Khan Academy or Math Antics or whatever. And also I still expect them to be pursuing some sort of learning opportunities throughout the day. And yet I don't follow provincial learning outcomes. I don't follow somebody that is similar to my child's age is doing this, so therefore my child has to be doing it. I'm not that mom anymore. And I very much want to follow their interests. So if they're really impassioned, like about aquarium fish, if you can hear the buzz in the background, that is my son's aquarium. Then if he pursues an interest in learning about aquarium fish and the snails that are eating the algae, or all the different things that are cleaning up the aquarium tank, and what kinds of driftwood are appropriate for the aquarium, and what kind of water he needs for that aquarium, or all that stuff, that's science, and I go with that. Although, just so you know, I at times go, yeah, but we bought, and this happened to me last year, yeah, but we bought this physics book, a workbook with the science experiments, and so because we bought that, then you're going to have to do the science thing. And that's science. Oh wait, you know what? Aquarium stuff is science too. I have to check myself at times and say, okay, wait, is this learning opportunity? So because I approach it that way most of the time, I might be telling you to let them choose what to do in what order. Truth is, I do that all the time. And yet, I know that that is a very challenging thing to do if you're in the earlier years of homeschooling, or if you have this idea of it has to be in a certain way. And but I encourage you to do it because there's a lot of freedom that way. You could take science to the park. This is just, if you're not full of snow and there's not a foot of snow on your playground equipment, there's so many ways that you could actually incorporate physics ideas in a playground. And I'm not really your girl to explain all that detail, but if you head over to Home Science Tools, or you head over to some there's so many different YouTube science stuff out there, you will discover that physics is right underneath your nose, and it is at the playground, and it's both a way to burn off tension for the kids and hang out outside, and also to do some science. And that, on the science thought, you could encourage the writing aspect as well by saying, hey, you want to do research on a specific topic. Maybe you come up with the idea of what science topic you're interested in. I'll help you find the resources to research it, and then you can write up a report on that. Is that something that your kids would be interested in doing? Of course, this is fun. This one was super fun when the kids were younger. Is we do a station day where we put things around the house in different places. Maybe the iPad would have Duolingo, and everybody could do a station for 15 minutes. There would be like iPad Duolingo for 15 minutes. There might be slime being made for chemistry experiment in the kitchen. We'd have a bananagram station using weekly spelling lists. in the dining room. We would, how did I do that? We'd do math games at the dining room table. There's all sorts of different ways to do that. Somehow I ended up with a Vietnamese Duolingo notification. I don't know why. I don't speak Vietnamese. I love their beef pho. That's my favorite soup if I'm sick, and if you have leftover beef bones, but I don't know why I was learning about Vietnamese. But it could be a fun way to incorporate the entire house and maybe do a variety of different subjects. Naturally, you know about Netflix documentaries and Knowledge Network and History Channel and Curiosity Stream. Have you met Curiosity Stream? They have some really solid documentaries, and they're short and pretty much can find any topic, and it's very inexpensive streaming online. And if you can incorporate maybe an hour or two in one time of the week where that's what you do, is just documentaries, pull out some popcorn and watch some documentaries. It's also a great way to feel like you actually went somewhere and traveled to a different part of the world. My son and I are enjoying, it's not a documentary, it's a show on Netflix. The creator of Everybody Loves Raymond. Madeline, do you remember where that was? What his name is? I have to remember that. But it is something like somebody, now I'm going to have to write this in later, but you know, it's a food consumption analysis or review show in a half-hour bit, and he's a really funny guy, and he goes all over the world and discovers new foods and introduces us to real people, and it's a pretty cool show. If we could, I would encourage you to join a homeschool co-op. That this would be the ideal time to do it, and it has been the time that we either were part of a co-op or we were part of a community theater presentation for homeschooled kids. And hi, how are you? And I really enjoyed that time, and my kids kind of grew out of it eventually. It was super fun watching my kids learn to perform, or also, you know, in our co-op days to be introduced to a whole bunch of concepts, whether it was history or science or geography, from people that, you know, parents that knew a lot of content about some area that I couldn't provide for my child in that level of depth without having someone, you know, join my homeschool. So a homeschool co-op is really useful. And I don't know if they're doing those on Zoom right now. It would be really great if they could. I know that everybody's getting tired of Zoom, but there's something to be said. Like my one kiddo goes to a youth group once a week, and sometimes he tires of the Zoom thing. But I think it's super useful to have the regular out-of-home experience where you're actually being exposed to other people, whether you're in real time with them or not, just to have a different, you know, perspective on your existence, I guess. Because this whole discussion about homeschool socialization, for so many years, we homeschool parents would hear that and just go, oh boy, how do I not roll my eyes when I'm hearing this question like 12 times a week? And this last year is the first time that actually it happened. We actually do experience what it's like to wonder about socialization, but the entire, you know, Earth has been experiencing this. Everyone in the world has been experiencing this. So what about homeschool socialization? It'd be very interesting to be a sociologist and to learn really the patterns of humanity and how we actually wanted to engage, or what we wanted to do, or what we needed. But that's a side thought. How about celebrate 100th day of studies, which Shirley, Madeline, will you tell Zach about that? Because I think I've lost track of where we're at. Celebrate your 100th day of studies. So this is a concept that I borrowed from school, and you keep track of how many days you were homeschooling for, and when you got to the number 100, that's when you'd have a party. I have a special post on my blog, Capturing the Charmed Life, that is all about the 100-day party, so I encourage you to jump over there. Next week, I think I'm going to discuss incorporating fun homeschool slump month strategies. Fun ones that are just related to how kids would engage and what kids would want to do. Practical by Default has had an Instagram story this morning that was talking about decluttering and the value of decluttering, if only for 15 minutes a day. So I was thinking we could actually create a challenge on my Facebook page, Homeschool Mama Support Group, where we actually spend 15 minutes a day decluttering a zone. Because I don't know about you, but by this point of the year, I am thinking about spring cleaning. Not just because we have a lot of spiders living with us, but because we have been living in this house indoors so long that we really need to freshen it up a bit. So, and get rid of stuff. So declutter challenge, just 15 minutes a day. Homeschool Mama Book Club. It dawned on me, why don't we have a Homeschool Mama book club online? So I invite you to join the Homeschool Mama support group because we have been filling in a poll in the last week, 2 weeks. What's the best day and time to do a Homeschool Mama book club? That would be a fun way to use this slump month time to actually get to know other homeschool moms across Canada, to get to know different people, and at the same time be able to do something that's mentally stimulating. And I'm thinking maybe a book that we're reading aloud with our kids we can talk about, a book that we are reading on our own, and maybe as a group we can read a book together and discuss that book. So if you're interested, join the Homeschool Mama support group on Facebook. This isn't something that I do, but I want to mention this because there is a huge influx in puzzle purchases this year. And I'm not really into puzzles. I've already told you I'm not really into games, so not surprising, I'm not into puzzles. But Gabe Cox from Red Hot Mindset said she loves doing puzzles. And I was reminded that's a really good hibernating kind of activity, right? So puzzles, or if you like art of any genre, you could also maybe order something online that is specific to a piece of art that you really want your kids to learn about, or that you want to know the nuances of. Then you could actually look up a puzzle of your favorite piece of art. Instagram photo challenge. This is the time of year where I think we need to build in practices to feel more grateful. And what other way to do it than actually photograph the special moments that actually make us truly feel grateful? I get to share those with you, and I do that on the regular basis. I think that's why we should actually do things like Instagram pages, so that we can highlight the things that are favorable, because I think this year has taught all of us that just because the Instagram feed is pretty doesn't mean that there isn't some serious background noise going on in our lives, and we can't avoid that no matter what. But why not highlight the things that we really love and are grateful for in our homeschools? And of course, we're going to try a new recipe, because this is definitely the time to be in the kitchen and cooking and prepping new things, trying new things. Last year was the year of sourdough. What is this year? We can make this a different year, right? My daughter Madeline and I have been putting together a bunch of cooking demonstrations in our own kitchen that I have on my YouTube channel. I call it the Homeschool Kitchen. Mostly, I'll tell you, it's really a way for me to build memories with my daughter who's about to graduate. And also, she's a really good cook, so there's a lot to offer. I'm mostly not in the camera as we're doing these cooking demonstrations. It's her, and I'm asking her questions about either her homeschool cooking experiences or about the specific recipe. And sometimes, because there's science experiments on the kitchen counter, because we are a homeschool family, then I ask her about her science experiments. And you'll notice that in the last week I posted a lot of content that's related to menu planning and grocery purchasing, tips to save money for groceries, and enabling kids to cook in the kitchen. If you know me in real time, you know that my kids really can cook. And there's two things that really enabled that. It was boredom and me leaving the kitchen. And they're really good cooks. So I think I'm going to leave it at that, because we have got to the 3 o'clock and I still want to go for a walk. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you want to chat about today? If you leave any comments down below, then I'll make sure to interact with you and chat. I'm happy to answer questions. I do want to remind you that a very good way to get socialization in the next week as a homeschool mom is to join the Canadian Online Homeschool Conference. Not only are you going to be meeting a ton of homeschool leaders across our country for 7 days, February 3rd until, that's Monday, until Sunday, but it's free this entire next week. And the schedule, you can find my affiliate link on in my Instagram page, in the link in the bio there, and you can see it pinned to the top of my page on Facebook, but it's free. So you can check out the schedule, decide when you want to show up and listen. There is a lot going on. Lisa Marie Fletcher has done so much behind the scenes and will also be in front of the screen next week. And it is worth it. It's a really, really great way to meet new people across the country and also to get a lot of really good encouragement and tips and support about your homeschool experience this year. She's also got a few topics scheduled in the evenings that are intended as a time just to come and chat together, specific topics with very significant leaders in the homeschool world in Canada right now. So it's worth your time. And even the Facebook page is hopping from, last year I noticed it was hopping, and not in part because I was also chatting a lot. But I love meeting new homeschoolers. And this year, there's a couple more. There's a lot more. So I welcome you all, and please join us because it's going to be a lot of fun next week. So I'm going to close then, and I just want to wish you really peace, and I wish for you that you can turn all your homeschool challenges into your homeschool charms. So have a good week.